One of the biggest things keeping you stuck from healing your trauma and moving through that in a way that feels healthy to you is that you keep using your trauma stories as a form of currency. Say, for example, you're telling a close friend or a partner about a traumatic experience that happened to you with the intention being, hey, this thing happened to me, and this is why I have this boundary, and this is why it's important to me because I'm trying to heal through this, and I don't want to be re traumatized. So I would really hope that you respect this boundary. However, sometimes people tell their trauma stories to other people because they're like, oh, if I tell my story, maybe we'll get connected, maybe we'll be closer. Or if I tell this person my trauma story and I'm more traumatized than them, then that means that I have more power in the dynamic because that would mean that they could never be mean to me because I'm more traumatized and I can invalidate their trauma because my trauma is worse. Then it kind of becomes this hierarchy of who is more traumatized. Therefore, it becomes a social currency. Instead of being an explanation as to how to get to understand us while we heal our trauma so that somebody can be more supportive of us. And I should also mention that explaining your trauma stories in order to get somebody to respect your boundary can in and of itself be unhelpful, and there are a lot of reasons for that. One of the big reasons is because even though it can be helpful to explain your trauma to somebody in order to explain why you have a boundary, it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed that that person's going to respect your boundary. More importantly, you shouldn't have to explain your trauma in order for someone to respect your boundary. So even though explaining that can help somebody make sense as to why you have that boundary, you just saying, hey, I don't like that, please don't do that, is more than enough. Which again brings us back to we use trauma as a social currency. If I can explain to people that I'm traumatized, maybe they will love me, maybe they will respect me, maybe they won't abandon or reject me. Or maybe, just maybe, if I explain my trauma to these people, then they will allow me to be myself without punishment. But just like explaining your trauma doesn't guarantee that somebody will respect a boundary of yours, it also doesn't guarantee that people will respond or act a specific way because they understand your trauma or they know about it. Which comes down to us asking ourselves our intentions for telling people about our trauma stories. Are we subconsciously trying to force other people to act in accordance to what we want? Or treat us the way that we want them to by feeling somewhat obligated because now they know about your trauma? Oh, you better not traumatize me again because I've already told you my trauma, and if you do that, that makes you a bad person. Just so later, if they do overstep a boundary or they're just not trauma informed, we can go, oh, see, I'm a victim. And then that way we can say, oh, this person didn't care about me even though I told them my trauma story and they traumatized me even more, instead of just realizing that maybe you and that person just weren't compatible. Which only keeps us in a loop of being fearful of connecting with others, but it also means that we constantly feel disconnected from ourselves. Because we are more identified with our trauma and our stories than we are with healing and moving through that trauma and building a life that feels safe for us. Because building a life that feels safe actually requires us to live. And to live means that even though we're trying to heal and grow, we also just try to find little pockets where we can enjoy life. We identify with more than just like the past and how we have let ourselves down and how other people have let us down. We allow ourselves to be able to talk to ourselves and other people about all kinds of things and not just trauma dumping, all the while convincing ourselves that we're having deep and connected and meaningful conversation. Which isn't to say that telling people about your trauma isn't something that can be really vulnerable or something that helps you all get closer or more connected. But if you made it this far in the video, be honest with yourself. Do you really feel like you're constantly telling your trauma stories because you feel like it's actually connecting you with other people, or do you just feel like it's an autopilot thing that you do because you feel like that is a social currency in order for you to be accepted for who you are? You got to be able to just let yourself laugh and enjoy your life and set boundaries and enforce them just because that's something that you want to do. You got to be able to sit confidently in who you are because you know how hard you had to work to be able to work through and navigate that trauma and those stories and identify with something more than that. All this to say, it makes sense that we tell the stories that we do to make sense of the trauma that we've experienced. In a lot of ways, it can be really helpful and cathartic, but it takes a balance of actually living your life as well. Because if we make our trauma our entire identity, then it will consume every single aspect of your life. Basically saying it's okay to not identify with your stories anymore. And even though that can be really scary at first, it's okay to heal and grow and to allow yourself new ways of perceiving your life and your future. Anyway, I hope that makes sense and I hope that helps at least one person. But anyway, my name is Sarah and I'm your favorite self-experimenting coach or companion, and I help get people reacquainted with who they most authentically are. You're an amazing person and I hope you have the best day.